Live from the beautiful Mirage Sportsbook in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the Behind the Book series. Gill Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, along with the star of the show, the VP of Race and Sports here at MGM Resorts International, Jay Rood. Hello, Jay.
How's it going, Gil?
I'm doing very well.
Yeah.
Ready to tack the books?
No, week number 2 for us here. Yeah, let's see what we can produce.
Let's do it. For those tuning in for the first time, we do this one way. We go through one marquee college football matchup. This week it'll be the Penn State-Ohio State game from the Horseshoe, and then a trio of NFL games, the Saints hosting the Bears, the Seahawks hosting the Texans, and then Sunday night, Detroit hosting Pittsburgh. And then, if you are so kind, the Ask the Pro segment sponsored by Play MGM. You will answer a question of a viewer that you have no idea what is coming at you to begin with.
No idea. Absolutely, yeah.
None.
Hopefully it's interesting.
Perhaps through that, some insight, informing your bets. This is Behind the Book. College football game of the week, no doubt what that game is this week. Ohio State hosting Penn State. Ohio State 6.5-point favorites. Now, Jay, this is one of these games we always talk about elimination possibilities. Penn State undefeated, Ohio State with one loss. We talked last week about how if you have 2 losses, there is no historical precedent for getting in a college football playoff with 2 losses. But in the case of Penn State, if they lose this, even though they'll only have 1 loss, probably they'll lose control of their own destiny towards that playoff as well.
I believe they will. I mean, Penn State's a great brand, but are they a strong enough brand to carry them into the 4 playoffs spots with 1 loss?
Yeah.
I don't know if they are or not. I mean, didn't work last year.
No.
And they should have got in there last year, but we'll see. I mean, and this is going to be a game where, you know, the average Joe is scratching his head going, number 2 team in the nation is getting 6.5 points against a team that's already lost, and arguably maybe, you know, perception doesn't look like the favorite is correct here. But, you know, playing in the shoe is big.
Playing in the shoe is big.
So, you know, I think we're going to need Ohio State for our lungs on this game, especially since it's an afternoon game. All the parlays are going to roll into it. It's going to be a really big game for every book in the state of Nevada. A
revenge game, if you will. Penn State winning in the whiteout in Happy Valley last year by a field goal. A better Penn State team, but the argument could be made that Penn State has really not faced a good passing team yet, and in comes J.T. Barrett, 21 touchdowns against just 1 pick. Last week against Nebraska, 5 touchdown passes, 325 yards passing, just throwing the ball all over the field. Penn State's got their work cut out for them, but you make the great point. Just because Penn State's got that little 2 in front of them, they're ranked. The average bettor is going to be all over Penn State getting the points.
Oh, getting the points, absolutely. I mean, it's going to be Penn State on the money line, Penn State plus the points. You know, and I think the real battle is going to be in the first quarter. You know, I mean, Penn State has enjoyed some separation in that first quarter on a lot of their games, and I don't think they're going to get that here. This is going to be, you know, a fight all the way to the end. I mean, hopefully it turns out to be a great game, but we'll see. You know, like I said, it's going to be we're going to be big Buckeye fans in the back of the counter.
Based on that, what Jay is intimating, that if you like Ohio State, maybe wait as long as you can. If you like Penn State, bet it quick. That's how the line, at least according to Jay, will head towards game time.
Yeah.
All right, early NFL game on Sunday, Week 8 in the National Football League. The New Orleans Saints, Jay, hosting the Chicago Bears. Saints favored by 9. Now, this is a fascinating one in terms of the line because the Bears are coming off a win against the Panthers, won by 2 touchdowns. But the Bears did it in the most unorthodox fashion. Their quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, threw 7 passes, completed 4 of them. He completed 4 more passes than you did.
Yeah.
And yet, the Bears win by 2 touchdowns. In fact, the Bears, first team since 1950 to have won a football game with 7 or fewer pass attempts, 5 or fewer first downs. How do bettors then view, because we talk about recency, but the Bears won. How are they going to approach a Bears team that won, but won it in a way that is unsustainable?
Yeah, I don't think that anyone is going to think that that's going to work against the Saints.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's, you know, this number's high for a reason. You know, and if the Bears' game plan is still that, it's going to be difficult if the Saints, you know, get going early, like they're capable of putting up points. I think we're going to have a really hard time trying to get bear money here. I do hope that we can convince the sharp community that the Bears is the side to play. So we'll be able to offset some liability that way.
How do you go about doing that?
Maybe throw a hook on this. Maybe we can entice them to bet that hook before we get to 10 on the weekend.
So a hook meaning 10.5?
9.5 right now. I'd like to
first.
fade it under the 10 if I can before we get to the weekend, because if I can get them to take the plus 9.5 during the week, then I'll have a little more comfort level going in through that 9.5 to 10, knowing that I've got a little bit of a, side on my side. So if it lands 10, I beat the sharps, and I push with the public. So that's manufacturing my play.
Not to get too into minutia, but if it gets to 9.5, then teasers come into effect a lot too.
Right.
Because if you're doing a 6 or 7 point teaser, you would be able to tease the Saints through the key numbers of 7 or 3 and 3, two numbers that a lot of NFL games obviously land on.
Right.
So that's favorable to teaser bettors. So I think 9.5 might be a pushback at that point.
Yeah, I mean, 9's almost sort of a dead number. I mean, if you're at 9, you might as well be at 9.5. And, and I think this, we're going to be, approaching that quicker than not.
We shall see. Saints 9-point favorites hosting the Bears Sunday morning. Come down to the Mirage or all the MGM properties to bet it as you will. Time for everybody's favorite segment, Ask the Pro, brought to you by the Play MGM app. Getting a question here from Vladimir in Ohio. Question for both of you guys. When is the best time to bet a game? I hear to get it early and other times to wait it out, and I find myself a little confused. Thanks. Have at it, sir.
Well, from my perspective, it could be probably the same as yours. I mean, from a pro side, because all the pros in my business, which are the sharps, understand the power of the public.
Yes.
The public is going to come in, and they tend to drive favorites up, but they also tend to look at, like the game that we were looking for earlier, Ohio State. Their number 2 team adding number 6 team. Even though they're at the number 6 team, that ranking 2 carries a lot of weight. And I think if you're looking at Ohio State, you probably are going to sit and wait. Maybe I can get this game under 6. So you're going to wait until they almost tee the ball up. But if you like the other side, you want to grab it early because, it's highly doubtful that this number is going to get pushed to 7, based off of that perception.
For sure. Generally speaking, I would add to that, in general, it doesn't happen all the time, but if you are leaning towards the favorite and the over, typically you want to bet that early in football, both pro and college. And if you're leaning towards the under or the underdog, wait. You'll probably get the best number towards the end. Now, there are exceptions to that, but that's generally speaking. And when it comes to the term sharp bettors defined by the rate at which you get the best of it, the best of the number. So that's what you strive to be, and within that exercise we just did, you can weed out who the sharps and who the squares are.
Absolutely. The value play, that's what all the sharps are always looking for.
That's right.
Might not win,
right,
but they got the value.
That's right. May not always come your way in the end, but if you do that over and over, you'll get the best of it over the long haul. That is Ask the Pro with Mr. J. Rood. Any questions, feel free to ask them. Jay, kind enough to answer each and every week right here on Behind the Book. Afternoon games on Sunday. Houston Texans at the Seattle Seahawks. Jay, Seattle minus 5.5 point favorites in this one. Texans with the extra rest, Deshaun Watson and crew. No J.J. Watt, no Whitney Merciless, of course, for the Texans. Seahawks coming off a win against the Giants, where they actually outgained the Giants in the first half, 222-42, and trailed at the half, 7-3.
Yeah.
And then come second half, they figured things out, translated that statistical domination into points. All of Russell Wilson's 3 touchdown passes come in the second half, and they win it going away. This is an interesting game for me, not just in the specific line of the game, but the Seahawks represent a team in a free-for-all in the NFC. I know you have to be thinking about futures right now. How's that going?
Yeah, this is a week where we start to look to see if teams are going to be contenders or they're pretenders. And I think there's a couple of teams that are a little bit on a roll. Game that we just talked about. Bears, are they a contender? I don't know. They've had a couple of good games. Got a new quarterback in there. We'll see what happens. But I think Seahawks are finally starting to turn that corner. You mentioned the second half of that game last week. That was a huge play by everyone. Everyone saw that Seattle basically dominated that game. They just didn't do it on the end zone. They had like 9 plays of first and goal, I think, on that one shot. And so that was a huge tidal wave of money that came in on the second half. But this is a spot where, we're going to be looking to see if the Seahawks can hold it up. Texans have a lot of injuries to deal with. They are getting a little bit help back from their draft pick coming into play this week. But it's a game where we're going to be looking at them. Steelers, are they real? Are the Lions going to turn the corner and make a push here too?
Sadly, that same strategy didn't work for Carolina's second half bettors last week, where it looked like they had the statistical advantage going into the second half, and they still laid an egg in the second half. But the interesting thing is, and by the way, for those wondering why we keep looking up, the actual big board of all the lines are there, so we're referencing that. Yeah. But as we look up at that board, yes, the NASDAQ, you've got 10 properties. You have to know, I guess, your clientele, whether they're a Seattle-based book, perhaps, or a West Coast-based book. Maybe New Orleans is favored at your East Coast clientele-laden books. That's a big gig for you to figure that out.
That gives me a huge advantage amongst, like, say, a standalone book. Is I have different books that I know, like here at the Mirage, this is an East Coast hotel. So we get a lot of East Coast wagers on East Coast teams.
Yeah.
Eagles, we're going to get the Giants, even though those are hard to come by now, as poorly as they're playing. But and then like MGM is West Coast. Mandalay Bay is a very West Coast hotel. So, it's kind of, do you move or do you wait for that hotel to bring in what it's supposed to bring into the pot? So it's a little bit of a balancing act. I mean, that's what I get paid to do, is manage the liability, not necessarily make the right number.
I think what you just mentioned, most people, including me last year, I didn't know anything about that. I think most people don't know that that is really a key cog in what you do, and a fascinating perspective from behind the book that you will only get right here, coincidentally, on the show Behind the Book. Come down to any of those properties, MGM, Aria, Bellagio, and of course right here at the Mirage. Beautiful places to make all your bets when you come to Las Vegas. Sunday Night Football, this is good, Jay. Pittsburgh, -3 on the road at Detroit. Thing with the Lions, they seem to be in a position every week where they are in a struggle to win it. It's a comeback situation. Matt Stafford gets a lot of credit for his amazing fourth quarter comebacks. This year, some of them haven't worked out in the fourth quarter, quite frankly. But extra rest for the Lions, 3-point home dogs. I don't want any part of this game. Not going to bet either side, just going to sit back and watch that. You feel differently.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked, you've said that, sometimes your best move is not to make a move on a game. Yep. And, a lot of people might feel that on this particular game, especially more of the sharp community. I mean, I think the only way probably the sharp community takes this game is if we go to 3.5 and they take it with the dog. I think the sharp community is really, the perception is probably that, the Steelers are on a roll. The Lions, like you said, have struggled. And, the quarterback gets all the praise for leading the team back from, being down. But really, the coach should get blamed for being down in the first place. I mean, if you're always having to come back from, being down, then something's wrong to begin with. It needs to be addressed. And obviously, the Lions haven't addressed that yet. Yep. But, I mean, this could be a huge game. It's going to dictate, how my day probably goes. Because all the parlays are going to be flowing into this. Like you said, people are going to be either, doubling down if they had a great day, or they're going to be, looking to, it's called get even deeper, or get even for the day. So, I mean, one thing's going to happen here. And, we're going to be huge Lion fans, I think. I think this number is going to squirrel around probably, maybe double juice one way or the other on the 3, or we might even go to 3.5. But, it's, as if we have a bad day early, this number will be 3.5, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Because everyone is going to start pounding the Steelers if we're having a bad day and favorites are coming in.
Don't chase your bets on Sunday Night Football. That's why he makes out as a bookmaker so well. If you're in town, whether at the Mirage or at other MGM Resorts properties, please get the Play MGM app. It's the best way to make your bets. You don't have to fight with the lines here in the casino.
Lines.
You can make your bets from the pool, from a restaurant, hanging out in your hotel room.
From home.
And a broader menu of bets available as well.
Yeah, Endgame is one of the big benefits of the app. So you can either, if you like what you're seeing, maybe get down a little bit more. If you don't like what you're seeing, maybe fade your action so that you don't take such a big hit on the pre-match game that you made.
Who likes lines? Get the Play MGM app and enjoy all your bets, including that Sunday night game between the Steelers and the Lions. Steelers, 3-point road favorites. Time for the stats of the week, or at least the stats that I will be looking at, Jay.
Gill stats of the week.
Gill's stats of the week. Going to find out about the Chicago Bears. I know they beat the Panthers. We talked about it earlier. Mitch Trubisky, 4 of 7, though, in that victory. The Bears defense, though, they did sack Cam Newton 5 times last week. They got 2 picks. Will the Bears defense be able to do enough to keep up with the Saints, or at least keep within that number, which is 9? That's the first thing. The other thing, the Atlanta Falcons, big question marks. Atlanta now 3-3. They lose to the Patriots last week. The Atlanta Falcons give up the first 23 points to the Patriots last week. That on the heels of giving up the last 20 to the Dolphins the week before. 43-0, a stretch in which the Falcons didn't score in 91 minutes and 30 seconds. Can the Falcons offense get it together at the Jets, where they're 4.5-point favorites? What do you think?
That's going to be, I mean, it's hard to believe that they've fallen this far off of their offensive power that they've had, last year. That's what got them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Kyle Shanahan gone and Steve Sarkisian in as offensive coordinator. What are you looking at this week?
Like I said, earlier, this is a week where, futures is going to be really vital to us. We're going to be trying to figure out who's the pretenders and who's the contenders here. So this is the separation week kind of. So we're really going to be tweaking our future book on, who's going to win the, college playoff and the Super Bowl coming up.
NFC, particularly a free-for-all, the futures book, very interesting. Saints, Seahawks, how will those get adjusted? Great insight from you, sir, today.
Yeah, well, it's not only about trying to get bets, protect against good teams. It's trying to draw money on the teams that I think are dead teams so that I can create my equity pool.
Love that stuff about how you get different money from different books. That's fascinating and very unique to what you do because, again, you lord over 10 different books.
Absolutely.
As the vice president of race and sports at MGM International for this gentleman, Jay Rood. I'm Gill Alexander from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, Sirius XM Channel 204. Thanks again for watching each and every week right here on Behind the Book.